Hi, welcome to another Run Wild with Us, Ask Us Anything. I'm Lisa Kastner. I'm the founder and executive editor of Running Wild Press and the founder of Rise Press. We are here with you every Thursday now at 5 p.m. Previously, you would get to see myself and on occasion some of my amazing cohorts in crime on Wednesdays at 4 p.m. Due to a variety of reasons, we had to switch it over to Thursdays at 5. So if you're watching this, it is not Thursday at 5 o'clock. This isn't a big deal. All you can go ahead, and if you have any kind of questions, go ahead and pop it in the comments section. And I will go back and go through and look for your comments and your questions, and I am more than happy to answer them in the subsequent week. So with that, I want to say hi to everybody. Thank you, thank you, thank you for joining us. And typically what happens if there's no questions in the comments during this live session, what I will do is I'll just go through some things that I think you might find interesting that myself or some of my cohorts may have encountered during the course of the week. Sometimes we're going to have a little like co-pilot, I guess you could say. I have two cats, Master and Margarita. Five, a thumbs up and a gold star to anybody who knows that reference. And they like to visit on occasion while we are in our live stream. So, with that, again, I just want to reiterate if you have any kind of questions around publishing, writing, craft, distribution, marketing, I don't know, acquisition, whatever, feel free, go ahead, put it in the comments. And again, I will be more than happy to answer those questions. Cool. Okay, so one thing I think a number of people will find really interesting. I met with our new acquisitions editor, Mona Bethke, who's amazing, by the way. You guys are going to adore her. And we talked about the scope of Rise. And what I mean by that is, what kind of titles are we actually going to acquire under the Rise banner? And what we actually talked about was acknowledging that literary is actually a genre. And so, with that in mind, we would acquire titles that would be considered literary under the Rise banner. So, in the past, we did not consider literary to be a quote unquote genre. So, if you have a title, if you have a story, if you have a novel, a narrative poem, if you have a memoir that is more along the lines of literary, and you're a person of color or you are from another underrepresented group, then please feel free to go ahead and go to our submittable page, which I believe is under Running Wild Press. But within that submittable page, we have the ability for you to submit for Rise, and it clearly specifies Rise versus Running Wild. I really look forward to reading your stories, whether it be a mystery or a thriller or science fiction or fantasy or literary. We are really enjoying actually going through the titles that we've gotten to date. Both Mona and myself, as well as one of our production managers, who's also basically like an editorial assistant. Her name is Alexis August, who is amazing. The three of us have been going through all the submissions we've gotten through Rise, and we're reading through to pick what do we want to pick next in terms of a long form piece, like a novel or a story collection, and what do we want to select for our upcoming short story anthology. Now, we will have annually both an anthology for short stories as well as an anthology for novellas. And we have that anthology. The inaugural anthologies will actually most likely be published for Rise in 2022, possibly 2023. For Running Wild, we actually are I think we've actually finished up the submission periods for both the short story anthology as well as the novella anthology. And I am personally actually editing the novella anthology for our sixth volume, which is kind of loony because I mean, I remember when we first started and I was begging people to send us work for the anthology, let alone a full length piece. So the fact that here we are and we are finishing up our sixth volume of both novellas and short stories, that's pretty amazing. So I am really, really, really looking forward to seeing what comes up for Rise and the kinds of stories that we're getting. We've already read a couple of the short stories that have been submitted to Rise, and you guys are freaking rock stars. I mean, these short stories, some of these short stories are just absolutely breathtaking. And they're the kind of breathtaking where when one reviewer reads it, they're like, oh my God, you've got to read this. And they forward it on to the others. So, man, you guys, I'm really, really excited for you at the end of the day to see what we actually have acquired and we get them to you and put them in your hands. So thank you. And again, remember that what I just said means that please send us your literary work. And the one thing that Mona and I talked about is if it is a cross genre piece, that would still get published under Running Wild Press versus published under Rise. So just kind of keep that in mind. Okay, cool. All right, so those were the big, I guess you could call them housekeeping things that I wanted to cover so far today. And let's see, what else might you be interested in? We are in the final stages of finishing up the titles that are going to be published in the first quarter of 2022. Again, I think you guys are going to love what you get. My production team is just working diligently to get everything finalized in the hands of our distributor so that you can enjoy reading these fantastic stories. They one really nice thing, so we did recently move to a new distributor. I've gotten a lot of emails around like, I can't find this, I can't find that for the last couple of months. I believe now you should have no difficulty at all finding the titles. If you do find that you're having difficulty finding our titles on, say, an Amazon or Walmart or Target, you can actually just go to our website, runningwildpress.com, and there is a link to our books, and you can actually purchase our titles from that link. And what's nice is it's coming right from us, so we're shipping it directly from the wholesaler, so directly from the manufacturer to you, which is pretty cool if you ask me. We also are going to have a really significant announcement in the coming weeks. It's something that I am beyond excited and thrilled about. I hope that you are just as excited and thrilled, or at least, you think it's kind of neat. Either way, it's totally cool. It's something that I think, one of the reasons that I started Running Wild and started Rise is that I truly, truly, truly believe that in today's world, fans and readers, they want their stories wherever they are. And so they don't just want it in paperback. They don't just want it in ebook. We want access to our favorite stories on paperback, email, audiobook, YouTube, TV, film, SVOD, which is just streaming service. We want it in graphic novels. We want them in comic books. So, the announcement really stages us well to fulfill that need, that desire, that demand that exists among today's readers. Dawn McIntyre asks, are all of your titles released as ebooks and print versions at the same time? That's a great question. Actually, yes, right now they are. We always release both primarily paperback as well as ebooks at the same time. Typically, if the book is going to be made into an audiobook, we tend to also release it around the same time as well. Um, there are variations to that. It depends on the agreement we have with the audiobook publishing company. But in general, that is true. Or we at least try to make sure that at least the audiobook version, it goes live at within a couple of weeks of the paperback and ebook releases. But yeah, at the same time, we just figure, I mean, it's easier that, well, in some ways easier that way, but also I don't personally see a reason, like, this isn't like going to the movies where you have this, like, amazing experience where you're sitting in a room that's dedicated to the story that you're watching, and popcorn, and once upon a time with other people, and maybe in like a 3D format, or one of those multimedia theaters. It's a paper book or an ebook, which really is more, in my opinion, around mobility, like what's easier for you to have access to if you like travel a lot or whatever. So unless someone convinces me otherwise, which is totally possible, I could totally see somebody talking me into changing that. Um, right, for now, we're just always going to release both the ebook and the paperback at the same time. So, thank you. That what really was a great question. Let's see. So, something else that you might find interesting. Um, let's see. So, we in California are still in the middle of. It's not really a heat wave. It's this weird ebb and flow. So it's almost like we have a couple hours where I swear I'm just sweating like crazy, and then it cools off a little bit, and then we're sweating like crazy again. So, oh well, life goes on. We may also be doing another big change in terms of our manufacturer soon. I wanted to get us through our distribution switch before doing that. I want to get that stabilized. So, you don't want to introduce chaos, basically, by completely changing an entire way you're doing things and who you're partnering with. And then in the middle of that, say, haha, I'm now going to introduce more chaos that's all around the same space. So it's just, in my opinion, it tends to be a little bit smarter, and it is more conservative as well to get through one major change at a time, if you can. Sometimes you don't have a choice. Sometimes you have to introduce significant change in multiple areas all at the same time. But my fingers crossed, we will be able to finish this one major change and then move on to another one. It should not impact the quality of the paperbacks that you receive. Just putting that out there. It should actually potentially improve, or at least ensure consistency in the quality of the paperbacks. So we've gotten some, like, what I call proof of concept versions of paperbacks from the new manufacturer, and they were pretty kicking. They were pretty banging. So I hope you guys find as much value in this as we hopefully will and do. Let's see. Other things that you might find interesting. So we are in the Running Wild press space. We are in hardcore edit and go-to-market mode. What I mean by that is we've basically acquired, I would say pretty much, we have maybe one or two slots still open for 2022. I believe we basically acquired pretty much our catalog for 2022. So we're going to start, actually, believe it or not, I know this is July, I know it's 2021, but soon we're going to start acquiring submissions or titles or stories for 2023. Woo! 23! It's crazy. And that's for Running Wild Press. For Rise, we actually are still in acquisition mode. So what I mean by that is We just finished editing and are in the, like I mentioned before, in the final stages of product management and getting it to our distributor for the first three titles under Rise Press, which is just phenomenal and insane. And we are currently in review mode, so we are going through all the submissions that we've gotten for short stories and for our novella anthology for Rise Press. And soon we're going to pick editors who will be dedicated to those stories. Now, we are still, though, under acquisition mode for 2022 for Rise. So, most likely anything that we acquire, I'd say in the next month or two, under for Rise, will most likely get published in 2022. It will probably be late 2022, potentially more between like October through December. And my hope is that we will be able to acquire at least 2 to 5 more titles under Rise. No promises there. It's just my personal desire that we're able to do that and able to really, give those titles justice, give them some great editors, those authors, some great editors to work with, because we have really beefed up our editorial team as well as our product management team recently with some of the most amazing individuals that you will ever meet and ever see. Same with our social media management and publicity team. We have 2 amazing young women who have been focused on, actually 3 amazing young women who have been working on our Instagram presence, our Twitter presence, our social media presence in general, as well as helping our authors in developing their plans for social media, and publicity for the launch of their books, and actually for themselves in general, just to help them build what we lovingly call a fan base. And, in reality, oftentimes we really want to make sure that our authors are well positioned so that their stories get in the hands of the fans and the readers who will love them. And oftentimes that involves a lot of planning, and it involves a lot of, FaceTime, really, like doing stuff like this. But probably not the same topic, right? Probably more around something about the story, something around the characters, something around the research that was done in developing the story. And, like maybe if it's a story about the homeless, maybe they do live stream events like this, interviewing individuals who are experts in addressing the homeless actually crisis that we have today, in not just in the United States, but globally, right? Stuff like that. The inequality. If someone does a story around the economic inequality that exists globally, maybe they interview individuals that they had spoken to, again, in a live streaming event like this one, and so that you, the viewer, can get a feel for what is going to be discussed within that topic, or rather within that book, and kind of get you engaged and feel like you're a part of the story development. So, yep. So we're in the heart of doing all that kind of stuff. We also are, and I don't know how many people have seen this. For those of you, which I'll mention this in a second, we are publishing. We're getting absolutely zero profit from this, by the way. We are publishing an anthology called Giving the Devil His Due, and it benefits the Pixel Project. And the Pixel Project is a nonprofit that is all about better, I guess you could say, better representation of women. And what I mean by that is, benefiting women who've been abused, who are, mistreated, ill-treated, hence, the theme of giving the devil his due. We have had just a phenomenal time working with the team at the Pixel Project. These guys, I mean, they are blow your mind brilliant, very incredibly detailed, really on the ball. I've really had a lot of fun working with them. And I want to thank everybody who actually has selected Giving the Devil His Due as on their must read list on Goodreads. My understanding is that it's like number 10 of on on the list of to read books uh, within its genre, which is kind of an insane and amazing and wonderful because the book doesn't even come out, guys, until September 1st, at least the special edition. So, what we're doing for Giving the Devil His Due is we are actually going to publish a special edition on September 1st, as I mentioned, and we're going to publish the official version. I believe it's on May 22nd, maybe, of 2022. So I can't wait to get these stories into your hands. They are written by some of the most phenomenal, amazing dark fiction and I believe fantasy authors that are in the market today. I think the majority, if not all, of the stories have been previously published, so you may find them very familiar when you pick it up. Again, I mean, the names of the individuals, I challenge you actually right now, pull up Google, pull up your another tab in your browser, type in Giving the Devil His Due and the Pixel Project or Running Wild Press, and you will find links to this fantastic anthology. I really hope that you guys back the Pixel Project and all that they're doing by picking up a book. As I mentioned, I'm getting nothing out of this, guys. If anything, I've actually invested quite a bit of money in terms of getting the book to market and getting it into your hands. And I'm thrilled to do that. I've known far too many women who have been sexually abused, physically abused, emotionally abused, who, I mean, I've known women who were near death because of the kind of abuse that they encountered. And the fact that there is such an organization like the Pixel Project to help, right, to benefit these women is just amazing. So I really, 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 really encourage you to go out, pick up the book. As I said, we don't benefit from it. There's no financial benefit to this. This is really all about helping out an amazing organization in accomplishing their goals. Awesome. Okay. So we're nearing ish the halfway point. So for those of you who are watching and you're like, who the hell is this redhead who's sitting here blathering on and on? So I am Lisa Kastner. I am the founder and executive editor, CEO of Running Wild Press and Rise Press. Running Wild is focused on publishing great stories with great writing that don't fit neatly in a box. We've had 2 books named Best of 2019, 2 books named Best of 2020 by Kirkus Reviews, several books that have received starred reviews. We've gotten a lot of amazing nods, and it's just really a compliment to the authors whom we've worked with, as well as the editors who are a part of our incredible team. Rise Press is published on great genre stories written by people of color and other underrepresented groups. As I mentioned at the beginning of this, we are now considering literary to be a genre. I look forward to the hate mail that I'm going to get in making that announcement, but you can kiss it because the decision's been made. We are currently, I think we actually finished acquisition for our short story collection as well as our novella collection. That said, I challenge you to go to our submittable page and look up and see where we are actually currently in the midst of acquiring titles. I would love to see your work, as would our amazing acquisitions editor, Mona Bethke, and one of our editorial assistants and production managers, Alexis August. We really are enjoying going through and reviewing and reading your submissions. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for that. Again, if you are new and you haven't seen this before and you're like, who the hell is this chick? I am here. We used to be here every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Pacific time. Now we are here every Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific time. 8 p.m. Eastern time. And I'm here to talk to you about publishing, creative writing, marketing, publicity, whatever, anything around that kind of thing. If you want to talk about acquisition of titles, if you want to talk about, like how do I get published by a big publisher versus a little publisher, if you want us to talk about whatever, right? Hey, take a chance. If you've got a burning question, go ahead and pop it in the comments section and I will be sure to review it. What is really fantastic about this is that we are live streaming across Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, and it's recorded in each platform. So for you, what that means is, let's say you just can't make it. It's like, oh my God, my kids are driving me crazy, or I would much rather go to blah at this hour. Maybe you've got a movie to see, maybe you've got a killer date, whatever the case may be. No big deal. You can always come back, and because this is recorded, you can check us out later. So I really think, that this is a great opportunity for you and for me to kind of touch base, right? And I get to hear from you, and you get to hear my maniacal plans and or thoughts on whatever that topic may be that you bring forward. So yeah, there you go. On occasion, we may actually have some of my acquisition editors join us. So our acquisition editors are Peter Wright, who he edited a couple of pieces that were named the best ofs, as well as several starred review pieces. Benjamin White, who also edited a few pieces that got some pretty amazing reviews. And Mona Bethke, who I've mentioned already, and she's newer to our team. And Mona has the accountability for acquisitions of titles under Rise, the Rise Press. So they may join me. It depends on their schedules. It can be kind of challenging. We're all located I think we're literally all located in different time zones. So, again, like whenever they can make it, then they will absolutely join us. So I think actually one topic that came up recently that you might actually kind of find interesting, and it's a little bit of a funny story. So, we're a small press, right? It may sound like we have this enormous group of people, and we kind of do, right? If you go to our website and you check out our team, you'll see quite a few names. The reality is, like, all of us really do this part-time. We all have primary jobs, or some of us are in college, some of us are getting a degree, some of us have more than 2 jobs, right? So we all work, we're all doing this out of pure significant passion, a lot of love, a lot of belief in you both the writer and you the reader. And with that in mind, because it's really an effort of love and passion and belief, that means that we're pretty selective in terms of what stories we actually publish. So it's interesting. Recently, we've had a couple of instances where, so let me back up. So our process, our acquisition editors, I go through all the submissions and I'm like, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, whatever, right? We oftentimes get notes asking, like, when am I going to find out if you guys are going to publish me or not? Because we only publish up to 25-ish books per press per year, that means that we have a backlog of a lot of yeses and a lot of like potential titles for us to keep into consideration. So in reality, if you sent us something and you haven't heard from us, that's actually really good. It means that you're still in the running, because either The only way you're going to hear from us is if we're making you an offer or we want to talk to you a little bit about your title or if we've shot you down. So, like I said, if you haven't heard anything, then if I were you, I would actually consider that to be great news. Anyway, we had a couple of instances in the last couple of months when we encountered a title and we were like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. I really love it. It has so much potential. It has so much opportunity. So we reached out to the author and made them an offer. And again, we're a small press. We all work on this part-time. We all work on this out of passion. We really believe in all of our titles. We have been incredibly blessed with some amazing, acclaim that I'll be honest, I would have never even imagined if back when I started this in 2016. Yes, I said 2016 for some of you who are watching and you're like, holy shit, it's been that long. Yeah, it's been that long. And, so the responses that we've received were really interesting. We had one gentleman who literally said, your offer has underwhelmed me. Okay, well, I'm flexible. Let's talk about what you would like to see in an actual contract, in an actual offer. I had someone else who came back and said, I really, this isn't what I expected. I'm passing this by my lawyer. And I was like, okay, all good, and because believe it or not, we have had lawyers review our contracts for us before we actually started offering them out. So, and, people who just came back and really weren't very nice. And there's this old rule that a dear friend of mine, who many of you may know, he lives by, which is don't be a jackass, don't be a jackass, don't be a jackass. And I actually try to live by that in general, in my life in general, right? Like, you don't have to be confrontational. You don't have to be a dick. If you don't like something, just ask the questions around the things that you find controversial or that you question. That's totally fine. I believe that the majority of the people in life, when they are bringing something forward, it's because they believe. I don't know many people who do mean things or do things that are perceived as mean and are doing it because they're like, I want to be mean. I want to be awful. They're doing it because they believe in what they're saying or they believe in what they're doing. But the reality is that for at least most of us, life is really all about relationships and how you interact. And so if you come at something and act like a jackass and are confrontational, you're probably not going to get a very good response. And I like to come at things and give people the benefit of the doubt, right? Like, okay, you're underwhelmed or you're upset. Let's talk about what has underwhelmed you. Let's talk about why you're upset. And let's try and figure out together exactly why, right? And address those things if we can. And then, hopefully you can join our family. Well, there's an exception to this. Oftentimes when someone first comes at us and they're confrontational or hyper aggressive, it's usually just a misunderstanding. There's either something in the contract that was misunderstood or interpreted in a way that wasn't intended. Maybe they saw something or heard something about a different publication or a different press, or they read an article somewhere, and for whatever reason, our offer or our initial interaction triggered that memory, and they were like, oh my God, you're out to get me. And all good, right? Let's just talk through it. Let's figure it out together. So if we go through that initial interaction and we figure out, oh, this is all a misunderstanding, and we work through it, that's awesome. But lately we've actually had several people, in the last couple months, like 2, maybe 3, who, man, even when we put out there, like, I'd love to just have a chat with you about this and understand what your needs are, they still came back and they were hyper mean, right? Or they were really confrontational, or they weren't very kind. It was clear that they really weren't interested in this being a collaboration, a relationship, right? Where we're working together. And what we've actually found, there have been a few instances where we encountered that, and I wouldn't say that we worked through it. The individual remained very aggressive in interactions with us, and we put the book out to market and probably would never work with that individual again. And it was interesting because myself and there are 3 editors who have all worked with Running Wild since, I want to say, 2018, 2019. So, and include that year. So 2018, 2019, 2020, right? 2021. So some people 4 years, some people 3 years. And we've been through the ropes enough that we know if someone is really being challenging and not, aggressive during the initial stages before we even sign a contract, they usually actually get worse after the contract's been signed, and meaning like they become more aggressive and more confrontational and more demanding. And like I said, in the past we said, okay, yeah, we'll work through this because we still think we believe in the story. And this is one of the first times that we actually said, you know what, thank you so much, we're going to rescind our offer, and we don't want to publish your work anymore. That was really interesting for me. The reason was, I started Running Wild Press because I saw so many great stories that simply weren't getting published. Leonard Pigg says, that sounds like self-sabotage, no sense of gratitude. It felt like self-sabotage in some cases. In one specific case, it definitely felt like self-sabotage. We actually did go through all the way through the editorial process, and we were just beginning the product management process. And the woman just became hyper aggressive. I mean, very threatening. And I and was just really awful to myself and to my product manager. And I said, thank you so much, but we're not going to publish this. And she just continued forward with more epithets and threats and, I'm going to sue you and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, okay, well, here's a copy of the contract that you signed so you can see what your rights are and what our rights are, and feel free to share it with your lawyer. It's fine. In the most recent case where we didn't even get to the point of signing a contract, one thing I found in some cases is that writers will, we all read a lot, right, about different things that have occurred within the marketplace. Maybe there's a publisher who presented themselves as a classic publisher or a standard publisher, and it turned out that they're really a self-publisher and they're selling services like editing and so on. And or they do like a bait and switch, so it feels like at first like they're a standard publisher, and then it turns out that they actually are. They may call themselves a hybrid, but they also may literally be again, purely really a self-publishing company where they're selling you services, anything from editing to cover design to manufacturing, right? And so even though we're very open about that, we're a standard publisher, right? And we're very open about the number of books that we publish and what we do and what we don't do, and the services that we do provide and the services that we do not provide as a part of our agreement with our authors. We've had several cases where the person came back with questions that it was as if they forgot who they actually submitted their piece to, they submitted their work to, which for me is disappointing, right? Because I would hope that the author, like if you get an actual contract, that you're going to go back and you're going to do your homework. If you don't remember the type of publisher this is, just go back and do your homework and double check, like, is it a hybrid? Is it a standard publisher? All that kind of stuff. Look up reviews. I even challenge you to go ahead and look up the titles that have been published already. Look up those authors and maybe ask those authors what their experience has been with that publisher, right? Instead of coming back and with really confrontational questions and really, interesting demands. Like, again, just do your homework, or even just ask the questions politely. Nothing wrong with that. I like it when people are polite. I like it when people are nice. I try to do that as well. So, but in this case, the gentleman, I think, had dreams of being published in the way that a lot of us read about, like, someone getting a 6-figure deal or a 7-figure deal, and out the gate, the book is already licensed for an upcoming movie. All kinds of stuff like that, which, crap, I'd love that. I'd love to be able to do that. I think it would be amazing. But again, we're like a small publisher. And I think because the offer that he received did not fall into those categories, we weren't making a 6-figure or a 7-figure offer. And, we can't out the gate right now, which not to say it wouldn't happen in the future, offer that the book may be made into it'll be acquired or licensed for a TV or film. Could totally happen. Absolutely. I look forward to that. But I think that he, really was offended in essence because it didn't fit into his dream view of what would happen. So, I challenge you as authors, as editors, honestly, just as human beings in general, if you are in any kind of interaction with another human being, don't be a jackass. If you have questions, ask them, but ask them politely. If you have concerns, raise them, right? There's nothing wrong with raising concerns. You absolutely should do so. Just do it in a way that is nice. That is, where it's clear that you're looking for a win-win. Because in reality, that's what, at least in my opinion, that's what we are after at Running Wild, at least, is we want the win-win. We want to make sure that we're publishing great stories. We are addressing some huge gaps, in my opinion, in the storytelling world, both with Running Wild Press and with Rise Press. That we are giving you, those fantastic readers, great stories for you to enjoy and hopefully share with your friends and family, and that the authors are fulfilled because they're having an opportunity to put their amazing work out to the public who can't wait to ingest what they have to offer. So at the end of the day, that's really what we want, right? We really want to make that happen. We're not out to cause anyone harm or make anyone mad or upset or whatever the case may be. So again, I feel like I've now harped on this forever, but if you are an author and you are sending your work out, I really do highly recommend that you again, do your homework. And when you get an offer and you don't really remember the background of that press, just go ahead and look it back up and then ask a bunch of questions in a nice and polite manner because you want this to be a long-term relationship. I mean, it's funny. I've had the blessing to go to like Breadloaf and Sewanee and Squaw Valley, so all these big name conferences. And one of my first mentors at Breadloaf, we have an opportunity. You get to sit down with your mentor, your workshop leader, one on one, and he had just won like a lifetime achievement award from Penn Awards. I mean, just like he'd been publishing since he was in college, right? I mean, he's pretty much a crazy rock star and has been in the literary world for quite a long time. And it was interesting because I was so excited. I got all this feedback, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna integrate all this feedback. And he looked horrified. He was like, "You're gonna do what? No, 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 no! Don't integrate all the feedback that you get. All that does is it waters down the story that you started off with. No, no, no. You need to go back and look at the feedback that you got and see if it actually enriches the story. Is this something that you want to actually integrate, right? Don't just do it because someone gave you the feedback." And for me at that time, that was like a whole new world because I came from more of a journalism and marketing background. And that's what I was used to, is that if someone gave me feedback on a release or a marketing plan or a business plan or a change management plan or any of that, an integration plan, then I was like, okay. And I went ahead and I integrated it, unless it was something that was kind of, it didn't make sense to me. And then I was just asked some leading questions to better understand it. And then again, either integrate it if it made sense, or if it didn't make sense, then hopefully the individual providing that feedback, he or she and I would come to an agreement on what to do. Anyway, he actually told me this amazing story that I'm now going to share with you. In that, he started writing when he was in college in his undergraduate career. And he basically wrote, just kind of off the cuff. The first novel he wrote was relatively short. I think it was maybe 50, 60,000 words. That's pretty short. And he wrote it, again, it came to him. So he, started writing it. And he didn't really want to go to a large publisher. It didn't feel like something that was appropriate for the title for that story. So he sent it to a couple of small publications, and one of them accepted it, again, unagented, right? And he's been with that same publisher now. Well, then, let's see, I worked with him in like 20 years ago. So I think he had been with them for 20 years, which is kind of amazing. And, his guidance to me was, he made sure that it was a long-term relationship, right? He always worked well. He always worked with his editor. They always talk through feedback. If it's something that he felt like needed to be talked through, it was always a collaboration. It was always a discussion. I don't think he actually even got an agent until much later in life. And it wasn't necessarily for book acquisition. It was around licensing of the stories for other formats. But that taught me a lot, right? I mean, it's not that I wasn't about collaborating with an editor before then. It's, again, because of my background. I took all the feedback that I got and I would just integrate it, right? Because that's what I was taught to do up until that point. So the combination of him challenging me and saying, no, don't just do whatever it is that someone tells you to do, right? You should make choices based on what you feel the story's about. That alone was a huge aha, because to be honest, up until that point, for short stories, I thought about what the story is about. For long stories, for novel length, at that juncture, I had written 2 novels. I actually hadn't thought about it, believe it or not. It had not occurred to me that I should start a story or with the idea or the concept of what is this story actually about? What do I want it to be? What lesson do I want to learn or do I want my reader to learn by the end of the story? What themes do I want to have in it? How do I want this to end? At that point, I had actually written pretty much everything from the perspective of I would have an idea and I would just start writing. And I would just write it until I was done. And I just assumed that was a narrative arc, which in some ways it was. In a lot of ways, it wasn't, because when you do write that way, you tend to kind of weave and flow and go on tangents. And it took a lot of revisions to get it to a point at the one story that I chose to focus on. The other one I just trashed. And but that was a huge lesson for me that, oh, it has a purpose, right? And you need to know what your purpose is so that when you do share it with other people and they provide suggestions, then you can say, oh, yes, that falls. That's aligned to my purpose. That's aligned to the intent of the story. Or, oh, no, it really doesn't. But thank you for the consideration. I'll look at that in the future, right? But then, so those were two huge lessons I got from him. And then again, the third one was around, really having that relationship, approaching these interactions in such a way that you are, hopefully you're building not just a working relationship, but in many ways, a friendship with your collaborator. And in this case, that collaborator would be your editor. If you approach even the initial interactions, like I described earlier, with one of confrontation, they're not going to want I don't care who the publisher is, they're not going to want to continue having a professional relationship with you. Reverse this. Think about you, right? Would you want that? If someone was a jerk and was confrontational and threw out epithets or, made wild accusations or accusations, period, would you want to actually continue a relationship with them? Probably not. So really approach these interactions, approach these relationships from the perspective that you actually want these to be maintained in the long term. Cool? Cool. So that's my blathering for this week. I'm actually going to end a little bit early. I actually am probably going to be ending all of these moving forward, probably 5 to 10 minutes before the top of the next hour, just because I have a few other things to do. So again, I love you guys. Welcome again to another Run Wild with Us. Ask Us Anything. I am Lisa Kastner, the founder and executive editor of Running Wild Press, the founder-ish of Rise Press. To the person who I consider to be the true founder, Andrea Johnson, stayed with us long enough to come up with a concept, acquire the first 3 titles, and then decided she wanted to focus on her own writing. But anyway, with that, I love you guys. And I thank you for joining us. Leonard Pig says that definitely breaks the trope of the lone wolf drunken writer. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, unless that lone wolf drunken writer is just freaking hilarious and fun to be around. Yeah. And then Dawn McIntyre says, thanks and have a good night. Thank you guys. I wish you all the best. And I will see you next week on another Run Wild with Us. Ask me whatever the hell you want. Okay? Bye.